and this is Marfoogle TV. We have a lot to go over in a short amount of time, so remember, you have a full bibliography with a source list for every article we're going to talk about today right at your fingertips. All you do is look for today's thumbnail on marfooglenews.com. Now, going straight into the first article here, we have U.S. inadvertently, and I'm gonna put inadvertently in a couple of these, inadvertently has been funding the Taliban, or at least this is what a Republican has said. This is a congressman, right? After, not before, Sarah Adams and a million other people have said this for a long time. Now he's saying it. Now that it's hot on the streak and everybody's talking about it online, that's when he says it. Again, I don't know about this one in particular, Tim Burchett. But I have talked about my opinion about the grandstanders, the one that say, oh, you knew what kind of hearing you were going to be at and you don't have the answers to these questions, Facebook, blah, blah, blah. Here's 5 pages of things and we're going to point to it and we're going to say, oh, these kind of guys are looking for a president role down the line. They're usually grandstanding when behind the scenes. They'll take a paycheck just like all of the other politicians, and they'll essentially, be that way in public. But behind the closed doors, they're making deals and totally screwing us over. As far as this goes, if you haven't put 2 and 2 together over the last, 20 years or 23, 24 years, there's been a lot of funding of these kinds of groups. And usually you can trickle it right back to the United States. So in turn, if we do get attacks, what he is saying is that we essentially are having these attacks funded by taxpayers, or at least that is his claim. Representative Tim, who serves Tennessee's 2nd Congressional District, did not provide any direct evidence for his claims, which appeared in an open letter to President Don. Of course, he repeated the allegation on Monday during a social media exchange with billionaire tech mogul Elon Musk, who is slated to serve in T-Man's administration, co-leading the new Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. It says Burchett told Musk that he believes that, quote, the next attack will be 100% fully funded by the American taxpayer. Wild claim, but is it true? We're going to talk about this and so much more. We're going to talk about more countries are now on high alert. Nothing in the show should be considered legal, medical, or financial advice. The views of the callers can differ considerably and do not necessarily reflect my opinion, Dex's opinion, or anyone else who works with the show. You should always do your own research and consult with professionals. The internet is full of fake news, so please take everything with a grain of salt. If you have not already, it helps us out if you end up going through any of our affiliates, and it helps you out if you end up protecting yourself against cybercrime. NordVPN is one of the best and one of the easiest to use. If you do not have a virtual private network, it protects your IP address, which is your online identity, which actually connects to your real address and everything else. It also connects to you. If you know anything about how they are data logging and basically getting your profiles down, you can prevent that by having a VPN. Nord is, again, one of the easiest. Download it. It's like an on switch and off switch. All you have to do. Go to marfooglenews.com/VPN. Not only will you get a giant discount on this, but you will also be helping us. I appreciate your support, and I appreciate everyone that goes through any of our affiliates. Can't say thank you enough. All right, now, by itself, yesterday, the U.S. bases were put on high alert. If you understand how to read the messages that come out, somebody said, oh, high alert, oh no, kind of sarcastically, I believe. It's easy to do that, especially when, any military member, too, would probably be like, yeah, well, we got put on high alert all the time. When you see whole countries declaring their bases are on high alert, right after a bunch of Ganda and a bunch of crazy stuff like, T attacks or so-called T attacks, like, Cybertrucks blowing up in front of T-Man's building, or people with the flag driving through a crowd of people, then you start to realize that, something very well could be about to happen. And who's behind it? I'm not going to say that it's absolutely the real guys or the three-letter agency guys or somebody else, but you can start to see a pattern. If you've done this long enough, and most of you have, you've watched this, not just us, but in general, you've been open and awake, and you can see the patterns of the ops of what ends up getting put out there. Today, same day, something got rehashed that went all over Twitter. And we could not directly verify it, but I can show you exactly what I'm talking about. There was a tweet that originally, before Israel got put on high alert, we'll talk about that here in a second. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the other countries that are on high alert now, and how the message of, in the coming hours, some extraordinary event, unusual event, and extraordinary events will happen, coming straight out of Iran, right? We're going to talk about that, because did they repeat almost the same sentiment that they did on August 3rd of 2024 when they said at that time, almost the same exact quote, only they said in the coming days? Did they change it now and they've said almost the exact same thing? Did they do that on purpose? Did they say it at all? Saying in the coming hours. If this whole buzz that was on X, coming from OCENT Defender and Bricks News, if those are correct, they say it's sourced from, I think, RBIB TV3 in Iran. The same channel did this thing back in August where they said, hey, there's, these extraordinary events coming in the next coming days. And it ended up happening. Of course, that was when the 300 missiles and all of that crazy stuff happened in Israel. It was after that event. That when we all said there's 72 hours until this happens, there's 48 hours, there's 106 hours, and then it finally did happen. So if they're saying coming hours, if they're saying it at all, we'll show you why people are really trying to verify that, because honestly, it's so close to what happened in August that people think maybe they're reading the same thing twice, but we'll show you. There's no proof of either way, and it went all over X. Let's bring in my co-internet brother, Dex James. What is going on, and how are you doing today?
Well, hello, Adam, and hello, Fugle fam. I'm doing just fine.
So just a reminder, too, that the Taliban are inadvertently funded, whatever else. There's a lot of us that have said this for years and known about this, that these groups have been funded. I mean, you've got pictures of Mr. Osama shaking the hands of the Bushes, right? At one point, we helped these groups, different groups, and then, of course, it was when they were fighting other groups, and we say, hey, this is the lesser of two evils. Let's help these guys defeat these guys. Well, then after you've armed them with millions and millions of dollars worth of weapons, and then their cause goes against your cause, all of a sudden they're now your enemy and not your ally. So, yeah, there's a lot going on here. And this, after the Sarah Adams interview that went viral just a few weeks ago, she is claiming that there is going to be nationwide events across the country, that they have trained over 1,000 people, close to 1,500 people from Al-Qaeda to do events. They said over 1,000 in the U.S. and over 1,000 in Europe, that both will be hit by nationwide events all over the place. So she's claiming that, and of course now he's saying that there's this event happening. Whether it's Ganda or not, what do you think they're setting up for? If something like that does happen, where are you going to point your finger? We absolutely know where you're going to. Dex, let's talk about North Korea fired a hypersonic missile with a message to the rivals.
Well, yeah, so this is an update. We talked yesterday about the fact that they had launched a missile. Nobody knew much about it, but now what's coming out is what the KCNA is reporting, and I guess that's going to be their word against anything else, because it's just basically their report. But the Korean Central News Agency on Tuesday claimed the successful test of a new type of intermediate range hypersonic ballistic missile. So they're saying it's a hypersonic. They also said Kim Jong-un was touting the weapon as a major military achievement. The successful test took place on Monday. It was also their first missile test of 2025. It's actually been quite a few weeks since they have done a launch. I recall that we haven't reported on them doing anything recently. So they said Kim personally oversaw it, and the missile was a hypersonic glide vehicle, traveled more than 930 miles, get this, at 12 times the speed of sound. It reached two different peaks of 62 miles and 26.4 miles before hitting a simulated target at sea, according to the North Korean leader. So that's their bragging for today as far as the update on what that missile launch was. That missile launch was when Blinken was showing up in South Korea to not meet with Yoon, who's held up in his lair, so to speak, in a conflict with the government there trying to detain him, but meeting with the interim representative that's running the country at the moment. So, yeah, things are really hairy right now between North and South, especially with the South's existing government sort of being in turmoil at the moment. But if this, I think the question we should be asking is, where is this technology coming from? Or actually, we can probably answer that question. It's coming from Russia. And we think about Russia launching that intermediate hypersonic ballistic missile that they did that hit in Ukraine that they said where they were going to use again. It's very likely that the technology that they're using there has been transferred over to North Korea, especially in exchange for all of the troops they've sent in to help Russia in the Ukraine war.
Yeah. So as far as, do you believe that they have them? Well, if they're giving 10,000, 20,000, 40,000 troops, they're going to get something for that. Are they getting cash for it? Probably. But they've also been shipping containers throughout and in between. They shipped 6,700 containers just in the matter of months. It's many more than that now. I think the official number went over 13,000. It went over like 16,000. Now, who knows? They haven't done an update since then. But those were containers of so-called ammunition or artillery shells and things like this. They're going to get stuff back. It's not magic that all of these countries, China, Iran, North Korea, Russia, and I'm forgetting at least one, they're all getting weapons that they normally don't have. They're all getting weapons from each other. They're all switching out. The one least talked about is China, but China really is at the root of all of this, even with Russia and Ukraine. With South Korea, now South Korea and North Korea are involved with the Ukrainian thing because now South Korea is, of course, seeing North Korea join the Russian conflict. South Korea is also starting up this trilateral alliance, or the Asian NATO with the U.S., so now they are on the crap list of Russia and everybody else. And then, of course, South Korea is going through what Dex just mentioned, which is the president is now locked down in his compound, and he has over 100 security guards and military units outside of the compound protecting him from being taken out, searched, and seized. Something massive is going on. I've said for years, my personal belief is that North Korea will be the trigger to the bigger weapon. And now we're getting closer to it. Look at what is happening. I knew it. You can see the patterns. You could see that they were setting up North Korea to be on this pedestal, like they're going to start the war. I believe that they will be the event between North Korea and South Korea. That will really trigger one of the first events that starts the whole domino knockover. North Korea, Kim Jong-un, who knows what's going on with that. But with South Korea, the president is now, they're trying to take him out. They're trying to impeach and relieve him. They're trying to do a regime change in South Korea. If you actually zoom out for a bit, and if you really look at Donald, like say if you were aliens, the Donald is talking about, combining Canada with the United States and grabbing Greenland and grabbing the Panama Canal. You've got China talking about taking about Taiwan and basically pushing its ocean out past into Philippine waters, into Vietnam waters. You have Venezuela talking about taking Guyana. You have Russia trying to take Ukraine, and there's talk of them taking all of it back, right? Whether you believe that or not. And then you have Iran and Israel. You have Israel and Lebanon. You have now Syria, regime changed. All of these things have happened in just the last year. It is absolutely nuts. It looks like, if you were an alien looking in on our planet, it would look like that something is about to go down and everybody is grabbing as much land as possible. That's what it looks like. Even if it's either talk or suggestion of, what do you think is going to happen in World War III? And the fact that we're talking about absorbing or grabbing Canada or whatever, after the 5-6 years of this pattern of showing basically the Canadian president and Canada in general going towards this route of being like super commie style, it is kind of weird. Like, and then all of the positive things that they've said about China. They're on the north of us. Well, everybody's looking south. What the hell is going on in the north? The country that has a contract and an agreement with China where they can basically walk right into Canada, protect their things of interest, and they don't even have to let even the local sheriff know if they're doing it. So lots of weird things are happening all at once. And it's like an inferno. Pacific Palisades fire explodes as thousands of residents flee. So the wind and the fire in California, I've been on long enough to have covered all of the really bad fires. And I'm praying for all of you in California, because I hope that something like what happened before in True Paradise there, I hope that something like that does not happen again. But this fire, the Pacific Palisades fire, was burning out of control Tuesday in Pacific Palisades, destroying homes and forcing residents to abandon their vehicles and flee amid a potentially life-threatening and destructive windstorm. Most of Pacific Palisades was under evacuation order by the afternoon as residents and firefighters fought traffic jams and heavy smoke trying to escape the nearby flames. The blaze broke out 10:30 a.m. near Pedra Morada Drive and was pushed by intense wind gusts that officials had warned could spark and fuel into a fast-moving, erratic wildfire. It was more than 700 acres by the afternoon. So in about an hour and a half, 700 acres had burned. That is a very scary fire. If any of you have ever been close to a forest fire, I was back in Winthrop, back when I was a kid, and we were at my grandpa's funeral. It was very, very scary. I can't imagine what they experienced in California with the Oregon and the California fires. But even with ours was about a mile away, and they said we needed to get out now. How the firefighters said it, I will never forget that. And it is a terrifying thing when they're saying, hey, this could be here any minute. Dex, go ahead.
Hey, I just found a video. If you want to grab it, it's in up next. It's the cars that are just abandoned on the road and the bulldozers out there trying to clear a path. Yeah, everybody just literally jumped out of their vehicles and started running. Yeah, it's pretty bad situation there. You know, we had a fire here near where I live, and I was kind of shocked. It wasn't as big as you hear about out west and everywhere else, but yeah, when it's near your house, man, it's kind of scary.
Yeah, and when people panic too, it's like you end up having people leave and ditch, and then if somebody is even farther back than that, then they have to get past all those cars. Gosh, and you know, this is another thing that really sucks, is like in any kind of disaster, people we're not trained in doing any of this stuff. Honestly, I think they should start teaching disaster stuff, what to do when you're a tiny kid. If they taught this from very young, even before you could drive, and really ingrained in every citizen in the United States, and this goes for the whole world, but how to do things. Like if there's a wildfire, no matter what, even if you're trying to escape, like do 2 lanes and leave a lane. I know that it doesn't work like that. People are going to go, oh, well, screw this, and then they're going to go past. But if they did, I mean, I don't know. I just think it's crazy how unorganized all of our disasters are. As a advanced civilization, as some call us, and as the most advanced, things on this planet, seems like we just do the stupidest stuff.
And I bet they didn't leave the keys in the cars, because it would have been a lot easier for people just to move them out of the way.
Yeah, think about it if they seriously took their keys at that point. Oh my gosh. Instead, they're going to come back to a ball of junk, because that bulldozer is going to smash the hell out of them. And maybe the fire was closer at that point, but it's like, if it was at that point, now there's people walking around it. And then before we move on, make sure to go check out Jace. This is our recommendation for an emergency kit. This emergency kit in particular has all of the most commonly prescribed antibiotics. It not only has all of the top antibiotics, but you can also add things in like emergency breathers. If you're caught in a situation where you can't reach a hospital, or the hospital is just completely down, their system is down, or there's a cyber attack, there's no pharmacies. We actually had a massive attack on over 30,000 pharmacies not too long ago, about 4 months ago. That knocked out 30,000 pharmacies. In that case, people had to drive, in some cases, 20, 30, 40, 50 miles just to go to a pharmacy to get their regular medication. In this case, there's also something called Jace Daily, which if that happens, Jace not only has you covered for antibiotics, but can also cover you for your regular meds. There's something called Jace Daily. I'd highly recommend looking into it. It actually has a 12-month supply of your regular medication. So if the power goes out tomorrow, you will have meds for a year. Go to marfooglenews.com/Jace, Jase, and make sure to use the code MARF. Not only will you be saving money, but you'll help our independent channel. Right now, especially in 2025, the last 2 years have been absolute hell on all of the platforms, which luckily, I believe we are live back on DLive, X, and Rumble. So thank you guys for making it to our show tonight. But share us out more than anything. You don't have to get any of the affiliates. You don't have to support. But if you share us out, we will be super grateful. All right. And then Guantanamo Bay detainee transfer announced. This isn't sus. Like, the timing is absolutely wild. So after this transfer, I believe they said that 15 will be left in Guantanamo. But they are moving some of the baddest hombres you've ever seen, some of the leaders of these terror groups, and they're going to be moving them at the same time as all of this buzz about military bases on high alert, buzz that, in the coming days, something spectacular will happen. I think of every movie where they're moving, 10 of the top guys, and the, Brinks truck that is moving them all gets hit in the side, and they drill a hole and they take them out via helicopter and pull them out. Obviously, it's not a movie. But is there a chance that these guys, while being transferred a long way, something could happen? They get attacked. They try to attack this move and get these guys back. We do have guys here. Dex, I just thought this is crazy. The JB administration, Mr. Joe, is transferring these guys as the open narrative is that he's trying to close Guantanamo.
Yeah, exactly. And so get this. These are Yemeni detainees. And they're going from Gitmo to Oman. So if you guys recall from geography, remember where Yemen is near the Gulf of Aden, and then you go around, like you're heading around towards Iran. As you come around the bend and get towards the Persian Gulf, that corner there, that's Oman, right next to Yemen. So, they're sending them to the government of Oman to deal with. And then, I guess presumably we would expect them to be detained there. But you can only imagine what the government of Oman may do with them after a short period of time. And they could just go literally right next door to where they're from, which is Yemen. And that, again, is a significant number that are being moved. This has been an ongoing process that has been a long-stated initiative of this administration. Even the administration before that he was part of, before the Don's administration, the O administration, also had, I guess, a mission to get rid of the detainments that were there in Gitmo. So obviously they're working hard at getting as much of this done before the upcoming shift in power. But you're correct. There are now 15 detainees remaining. 3 are eligible for transfers. 3 are eligible for periodic review board. 7 are involved in current military commissions processes, and 2 have actually been convicted and sentenced by military commissions.
Aren't some of these guys like Sharkawi? This sounds like one of the guys that was on the deck of cards. Like, if they were still there after these other missions to move people out, these were the baddest of the bad. I would assume they're still in Guantanamo Bay. Who the hell are these guys? I think it would be interesting, and you guys can do this at home as your homework. I don't want to put it on my search engine, but maybe DuckDuckGo. Look up all these names, see how highly ranked all of these guys are. If you want to do that, go ahead. I already got enough people watching. Oh, I'm not supposed to say anything? Sorry, I don't have anybody watching. And then Turkey backed Syria, maybe bigger threat than Iran, says Israeli government. Dex, do you want to go over this and why they're saying?
So, look, as we know, the initial overthrow was backed by a group from Eldib that I can't remember the acronym that they used, but it doesn't matter. They were backed by Turkey significantly, and there's a lot of push from Turkey now to have greater influence into Syria as it relates to this. Now, obviously, Israel has been going, full speed as far as trying to take out as many of the military weapons that were in the country that were, obviously formerly in control from Assad, and eliminate as much of those threats that could then be used against them in the future. And they have their own interest, and they will even want to have their own boots on the ground, so to speak, in a DMZ-like zone that would help prevent any type of activity from Syria into Israel. But obviously, there is a lot of tension over who is going to be in control. When Assad was there, really a lot of people considered it Iran was in control because they were the ones that were backing Assad. They had the most influence, and Syria was basically, an arm or an extension of Iran. And now they're suggesting that as this evolves, if it evolves, that Turkey is the country that has the greatest influence and power in Syria, that in and of itself is just as bad, if not worse, to Israel. At least that's Israel's position, and that's what they're saying here. We'll have to watch how this plays out, but I think it is a valid point, at least from their point of view, because Turkey has made such a significant push to have influence, power, and control in the vacuum that was created, but when they ousted Assad there.
And look at the layout too. I'm surprised that Turkey hasn't posted a picture of the Turkish flag with Syria and Turkey combined, right? Seriously, if you were an alien right now and you see the same day that they talk about how Turkey's the bigger threat because they are the ones that basically are in charge of Syria, well, what about the thousands of U.S. airstrikes that helped Turkey? But U.S. and Israel are so close. It's like Israel's not saying U.S., why did you help? Oh, wait, we helped too. Israel did strikes inside of Syria. But now all of a sudden their intelligence agencies are like, oh, I guess Turkey was the one who was totally behind this. It wasn't Ukraine the ones that were basically breastfeeding. Those ones are the ones who sent them drones and things, even though they've got their own conflict with Russia and they need so much from us. They're so desperate that we need to, feed them, that they're sending their extra drones to Syria to HTS. Look it up. Ukraine sent dozens, who knows how many, of massive drones over to HTS to help in their fight against Syria. But now they're saying that these groups, the HTS, which HTS, they say they only have about 5,000 members, are actually, they say that this revolutionary guy, he put on a blazer and he's like, hey guys, follow me. And they were like, oh, he's wearing a blazer. Let's follow him. Allah Shababa Baba. I don't know what ended up happening behind closed doors or closed tents, whatever the hell happened. But now they're saying, oh, Turkey's the one doing this. Some event might happen, and it might even be people from Syria. That would make sense, considering now this guy is getting CNN interviews. He got taken off the most wanted list. He's going to, and I thought right away, he's going to turn into the next Osama. That's just my opinion. That guy will end up being later down the road. We helped him and helped him take this thing over. He's going to be the face that they say is in charge of whatever bad things are to come. Why else would they set up this thing? Have CNN interviews that we all remember. Like over a couple days, everybody knew about this CNN interview. Who follows that kind of stuff? They pushed it down everybody's throat. They showed it. They want us to remember this revolutionary guy who was ex-Al-Qaeda. And they wanted us to know that, hey, this guy, used to be one of the bad guys. But he grew. And they made it such a BS script that everybody's like, yeah, okay. So he was just going through a phase when he was, strapping on vests and stuff, right? It was a phase. It was like, oh, well, I wore black for a while. Oh, well, I joined Al-Qaeda for a while. I don't think so. I'm not buying it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments down below. And then major country reintroduces strict CV rules. And by CV, I mean the that we couldn't say for like 4 years and still can't. I mean, you can if you don't have some sort of multi-channel network protecting you, then you'll still get bumped. Major country reintroduces, and they say major country. We're talking about 1.4 billion. India has now introduced super strict new rules, face coverings, this kind of stuff. Very, very freaky, and the timing couldn't be more convenient. Dex, this isn't, and other articles that I saw on this, they said, well, another country is doing this, and another reasonably sized country. Like, it's like 1.4 billion people. It's a huge country. Why are they doing this? Why is it happening now? And they're calling it meta-pneumo.
Well, yeah, and they're calling it a mystery illness too, because it doesn't have, they say they don't have a lot of information about it, which is convenient because that means they can, all sorts of, fear can be applied here and all sorts of unknowns can be applied and they can tell us, whatever they need to tell us about this. So that's usually the way this kind of thing works. So, but yeah, this is, apparently it is so bad coming from China to potentially India that India is now ratcheting up their old rules that they had in place in 2020 and telling people don't go into public areas, telling people to, cover themselves, etc. And it's only going to grow from here. This is what we saw in, the beginning of 2020. It's kind of the same thing. It just starts going from country to country and people start reacting. Now, it is possible that a lot of this is just the reactionary to the fear that what had happened in that last round, and that you're going to see these reactions as part of the psychological part of it. But at the same time, we have to think like what's really coming, and is this going to get to a greater extent that's going to have a direct effect on our lives, our day-to-day activities, and what it means to us, and the ability to, wipe our rear ends or whatever, right? I mean, last time with no toilet paper, gosh, the world had come to an end.
Well, and they say that it spreads during winter and early spring months. Sounds a whole lot like something else, but I'm not going to get into it because later down the road, Mr. Algorithm is going to come and Al will say, hey, did you say something? I swear this looks like what do you call it? AI. The lettering on it. Maybe they took a regular test. I don't know. But somebody is having a baby. Finding Meta-pneumo. That will be the new Disney movie, right? Yeah. But yeah, the way that the letters are looks photoshopped on, like they just put that on top of another photo. Is that a real photo? And another thing, there's no source. Usually it says, here's a note of somebody holding a test in Shenzhen, China, of something they made in arts and crafts class in 3rd grade. It usually says something like that underneath. It didn't say it for this. But little Timmy's having a boy. I don't know. And we have China's 8. Okay, and by the way, a disclaimer, there's a reason why we covered this. And we're not trying to give a trophy to China. We point this out because there are so many of these coming out, and people need to know there are a lot of these huge advancements happening, and they're coming out of China. Dex, do you want to talk about this and why this is a very, very incredible kind of move up the steps with internet and data and everything else? And before you say anything else, also think about the lines that they are competing with the U.S. with undersea cables and things like that, where other countries are like, well, do we want to go with the U.S. one or do we want to go with China's? Are we watched by the CIA or are we watched by this, the CCP? And people are choosing CCP. Dex, how big of a thing is this and what is it?
Okay, so this is being touted as a huge advancement, a very large step forward in data transfer. So, but in a nutshell, what they've done is they've built an 8,000-mile network. It's connecting 13 of the provinces there. But the interesting thing is that the technology they're using for this network is new. It's using I think it's using fiber optics, but it's doing some new ways about going through and transferring data. And they're able to get basically this lightning speed, zero data loss, and ultra low delays across this large path of a network. And it's sort of a new architectural approach. I'm not going to go into all the, geekiness of it because it's above my head and above everybody's in this audience's head. But the point is, when you think of something like zero packet loss, that's important because it means data is moving very fast without a lot of errors. And when there's an error, it has to repeat the data, so it slows things down. Low latency means high speed, so that things are connecting quickly. There's not a lot of slowness in it, even though there may be a lot of bandwidth available. And they're having a significant amount of stability. Now, they're suggesting that this type of technology that they've developed, achieving this zero packet loss, this super low jitter, and traversing a large amount of distance with a huge amount of volume of data is probably to support their AI advancements and where they're going with that. And that makes sense. We know that they've invested heavily to try to catch up on AI. They're saying that it will facilitate the rapid transfer of massive data sets for AI model training. And it'll enable efficient transfer of data from the eastern regions and the data centers in the west. And of course, it'll make them be able to watch their Chinese version of Netflix a lot faster, right? But ultimately, this is a huge innovation. And what we keep seeing is these massive innovations that are coming out of China. And we got to sort of get out of the mindset that, China just, they always make things that aren't as good as everyone else when they're now, leading a lot of innovation. They're not the leader. The U.S. still has probably the majority of major tech innovation by a long shot at the moment, but they've made huge strides. They've made significant advancements, especially in military capabilities that we've talked about and covered on the show. It seems like every month, if not 2 or 3 times a month, there's something new coming out. And then something like this data transfer that is, basically setting new records and creating new standards for how we go about long distance transfer of massive amounts of data.
And I want to point out there's a lot of things that really will blow your mind. There is a YouTube video. I will have to let me see if I can find the name of it. It's a YouTube video that I was not expecting to watch all the way through, but it's about dams, and specifically, I believe it's China, how China moves ships through the mountains, basically literally moves them through a mountain, right? And they don't go through it. They're talking about dams and some of the biggest and largest dams. Like everybody here probably knows about the Hoover Dam. Or if you're in Europe, I don't know what your big one is there. But in China, they have one of the largest lifts in the world. Dams usually work through a system of locks. Some have lifts. And it was a very fascinating video because it actually has different systems they've come up with, like even these weird almost look like something you'd put on your desk with 2 heavy balls that roll. They put a ship in a water canal that then goes like this. Very crazy thing. But China has innovated in areas like that too. In all of these industrial areas, just bigger, crazier, just insane. And they have teamed up. Every one of these projects, it said they've teamed up with German scientists or this scientist or that, and they're spending mucho bucks making their country this incredibly advanced country. They're the CCP. They don't have to worry about people voting to do this or voting to do that. They are ahead of us in AI and autonomous drones. That is one area that absolutely we should have never let them get ahead in. But this dam, one of the dams, they actually lift it through like these sets of elevators, and then they actually have them have these massive cargo ships rolling through bridges and things up in the mountains. It's insanity. I have to find that video because it is absolutely stunning. And when you look at this and you go, why is China doing this before us? Or why? Back in the day, when you see all of these old things, like even if you look at ships like the Titanic, or if you look at buildings, or if you go back to Rome, you look back at ancient Rome where they made everything. Everything was so over the top and handmade and took so long to make. It's like everything now is mass produced and plastic and this and that. When you do see things that are actually manufactured to last, it's rare. And why is China the one doing it? When our idea of China is that they're the guys who make the crappy plastic knockoff things, when in reality, they're making stuff that is blowing the rest of the world out of the water. In some cases, literally. So yeah, when Dex, the next time Dex covers an article, I'll pull up this video because it was absolutely mind-blowing. Not only what they did, but Germany and Belgium, I believe, has one. I mean, it was really cool video. And then let's see here. So let's go back into it. Before we move on, make sure to go check out, again, Grid Down, Bug Out. These things are absolutely the most awesome solar generator out there. These are on a bigger scale. Now, those of you that might have an Energy, highly recommend that you keep that as your portable. But this is a newer system that is a high capacity solar generator that is actually already EMP shield protected. This has a capacity of 6,000 peak watts and 3,000 continuous. Everybody asked, said, hey, we would love this one, but we want something with more output. So this is the one. We waited for a very long time because we wanted to make sure that we went with the right one. They teamed up directly with the EMP Shield. Each one of these has one, again, with it. So again, if you haven't checked it out, the main unit, the Grid Down Bug Out is this unit right here. You can actually add in the Bug Out XPs, which are the battery units. With one, you have almost 1,600 watt hours, or over 1,600 watt hours. With a XP added, you have 4,000, almost 4,300 watt hours at your disposal. On top of that, you have EMP Shield built right in. And that if you go over 1 XP, that purchase actually qualifies you for a 30% tax rebate. So a lot of people are doing that because they're switching to solar. If you are going to do this, again, also keep in mind, these are great for RVs. You can actually plug in a 30 amp port right into it. If you are a van lifer, then this is the go-to. It even has the cord to charge it plugged right in there. You can also charge it, of course, with solar panels. Highly recommend folding portable ones because it is much easier, can take them anywhere. Also, keep in mind, they actually have the walls. A lot of people have heard of the Tesla walls. These are the Grid Down walls, and these things are absolutely amazing. So if you actually want to do a whole house and not a portable, they also have you covered too. All EMP Shield protected. We believe in this, and we know that it's not going to be, on day 0 turned off by some other country. That's because this one, there is no chance of that happening. So again, marfooglenews.com/bugout, and make sure to use the code MARF. Again, that's marfooglenews.com/bugout, and make sure to use the code MARF. You'll save money and help our channel at the same time and get prepared. And then Israeli military is on high alert as regional tensions and Iranian rhetoric escalate. Now, want to keep in mind, I don't know if I should have got screenshots of what was trending earlier because it was really freaky. In fact, I have my X to go to. So hold on. Let me pull this up real quick. I can actually go to @Marfoogle if you want to follow on Twitter, @Marfoogle. Very easy to remember if you remember the channel's name. And that is odd. Let's see. Is it not here? Or did I pin that one? Oh, okay. I pinned it. All right. So let's see here. Okay. So this was what caused a lot of fuss today. And even Grok, which is AI, pulled up and made this the #1 topic on X. And I think this might be a downside depending on how this ended up turning out. But what they said, this is what was reported, copied and pasted all over. And as to my knowledge, before this show started, there was no proof that this was not said by RBIB TV3 in Iran, which is a direct mouthpiece. Basically, everything that goes out of it has to be approved by the Iranian leadership, Ayatollah. This stated, and I want to just point out that, again, this later on could come out as something else or a repeat, and I'll show you why. Iranian state media reports that in the coming hours, the world will witness unusual scenes and extraordinary events. This was echoed by many big accounts, many big accounts, and I'm not saying it's false either. If you look, this was, they stated an almost identical quote, only you substitute days. In the coming hours, the world will witness, just substitute in the coming days, the world will witness unusual scenes and developments. Maybe that is the original. Unusual scenes and extraordinary events. So again, Iran stated an identical quote in August. Did they say it again? And again, that statement also had different pieces out there. So I want to point out, this happened before it came out that Israel said all of the rhetoric and this stuff. Now they are on supposed high alert. In fact, Dex, do you want to go over this? I'm gonna pull up that damn thing while you cover this.
Yeah, certainly. So the Chief of Staff, Lieutenant General Herzi Halevi, has placed the Israeli military on high alert, warning that Iran may take extreme measures against Israel in the coming days. According to a report from the news there, the heightened caution stems from escalating tensions in Iran in the country's economic, political, and military spheres. Unnamed defense sources cited the report indicated that the factors combined with the uncertainty surrounding the return of the Don to the White House later this month could push Iran towards aggressive actions. So obviously maybe even doing something before he gets in. So I'll remind people, one of the things that was asked today of the Don, because he did a big press conference, that's why all this stuff had come out about him. They were talking specifically about what's going on with Israel and the Strip and the hostages. And he said, look, those people have to be freed before he gets into office. And if they don't, then then they'll be hell to pay or something like that, he said. But basically saying that he would light up the Middle East. He said it would just, be a significant escalation in the Middle East if it's not taken care of by the day he gets into office. So he has set a deadline of so we've got like 13 days now for them to release everybody. There is discussion about that they're talking about, but obviously there is a lot of push, obviously, from him and from Israel about doing something specific to Iran. I know they've been talking quite a bit about, even the current administration has even discussed whether or not they should strike the nuclear capabilities that Iran has. As you guys remember, there's been this ongoing tit for tat last year, back and forth between Israel and Iran, and the ball is in Iran's court to retaliate. Everybody's been sort of waiting for this third retaliation that they were supposed to do, but then that got sort of put on hold. And then the Syria event happened, and Iran got sort of knocked down a little bit more, and it's still on hold. So the question is, are they about to do something now? And are they about to do something in the coming hours or days because of, the timing of everything right now? Obviously, Israel's aware of some level of opportunity. There's also these drills. They said that Iran is currently doing drills, and that those drills can be used as a scenario to launch, if not even move equipment, but definitely to launch from the disguise of a drill. So that's happening as we speak as well. So go ahead.
When would you do it? Would you wait until the dawn was in power? If you were going to do something to the U.S., especially, or if you were going to go after Israel, if the Dawn is saying the second he is going in, he's going to be fire and fury, you're going to go with this guy who many people in the world are not too sure if he's even running the damn thing. And nobody really sees him just all up in, declaring that he's going to strike back heavy and hard and just pound the heck out of Iran because they did something to Israel. The Dawn, that's not so true. Dex, this is kind of freaky because the time frame, we have 13 days until this power change, and I still believe, look at how it's all creeping up, like it's all going right to the edge. It's almost like they're going to do it right before.
Well, this is the prime time, right? If you're going to do something, you're going to do it now in between sort of the transitionary period. Yes, we still have a president at the moment, but people even question his ability, and what would actually happen if things got escalated. Now, some would also suggest that he might look to do something to create any type of event that he'd want to have running that would force the Dawn into a position that he'd have to deal with as he enters in. So that's another scenario that others have taken a position on. But I think the main thing to consider is, if Iran is going to do their retaliation that they've talked about, or if they want to preempt something, would they do it now before the Dawn takes power?
Think about this. If there is a massive war started right before he takes power, I mean, sometimes even a massive war could even stop the switching of power. If something was going to happen right there, I mean, what would happen if a massive war would happen? Would they try to still continue to switch and inaugurate the next one? In this case, I probably think they would. But what if something so big happens right before? I mean, is there one last trick up the sleeves of the people that tried to, him out? I mean, they literally tried to take his life. If he would have turned his head just an inch the other way, we would have been in a civil conflict right now. They didn't care to start that. Think about that. And people go, well, what do you mean? It was this one guy on the roof. Oh, really? Why was the roof open? Secret Service didn't look at the one roof across the street? I mean, come on. People aren't that stupid. And then the second time with the bushes, he was at a golf course that nobody knew he was going to be at, and he didn't tell anybody where he was going to be, and the guy found the one bush that was just completely lined up. I mean, it's just stupid. Now to the point where they have robot dogs roaming Mar-a-Lago. Or should we call it Mar-a-Doggo? Mar-a-Doggo. I took Dad to the next level. And then T-Man refuses to rule out use of military force to take control of Greenland and the Panama Canal. So in the last show, we didn't really have the map to kind of give reference. A couple of people commented, they were asking where is Greenland? So here's the U.S. And again, he just posted a picture that shows all of this, U.S. and Canada. T-Man, our former president and next president, posted this picture with basically the American flag covering the whole thing. I think his comment was like, "Oh, Canada" or something. But people are like saying, hey, is this a hint that he's going to take over Canada or something's going to happen? I highly doubt it will be by force, right? But then he also says they're saying he won't rule out that he would take Greenland and the Panama Canal by force. So Greenland is a very strategic place. If you look at its placement here, I mean, heck, that is incredibly strategic. Imagine if USA was extended to all of Canada. That would be pretty insane. Because we have Alaska. This whole area in between is, I mean, it's like day and night. I mean, it's very similar to the U.S., but it is not the same. Anybody that's gone up to Canada for any amount of time knows it's different. While people are all looking at the south border, which now down here he's saying, oh, well, that's going to be the Gulf of America. Wouldn't that also kind of be saying, like, what if he took over Mexico and frickin' Canada? But again, that's if you were an alien looking at this planet with all of the hype and the rhetoric that's being said. But Greenland is also something that, again, people have said would be the place where if it was the end of the world, a meteor was coming to the world, that Greenland would be one of the few places that's safe. It's also a very strategic area for missiles and missile defense. If something was coming at us, and that might be a hint, Dex, think about that. When we talk about fractional orbital bombardment systems, would it not? Or wait, I guess it would come from down below, wouldn't it?
Correct. Yeah, FOBS comes from South America area.
So we need something down in Mexico. We need stuff down in Mexico or even further down to block against FOBS. Because FOBS goes, if it basically does this. So say if it's launched over here, it would come underneath. And I know some of you guys are like, but it's flat. Again, just hypothetically, it's what we all think it is, or what some of us think it is. And then boom, it hits. Or if it is the way you think it is, and it just comes from over here and hits there, either way, we would need defenses down right here. And but he's talking about Greenland and the Panama Canal and talking about it like he would take that thing over. Why is there so much talk about taking over neighbors or not denying it or putting it out there? You got Turkey and Syria. You got Venezuela and Guyana. You got Russia and Ukraine. You've got China and Taiwan. You've got, of course, all sorts of other countries, North Korea and South Korea. It's like, this is the time. When do you think a World War III would pop up? I bet it wouldn't be that time that everybody is talking about taking their neighbor. That's for sure. When there's at least like 10 land grabs on the table right now that are being proposed, yeah, that wouldn't be the time for World War III. It would totally be that time when everything's fine and nobody's talking about taking over their neighbors. That makes sense. But we talked about this over on TV. Dex, they got more of my opinion over there. Do you want to chime in on this?
You know, a lot of people talk about like how they're trying to open the Arctic with the ice, receding and having more waterways for transportation, and et cetera. But really, it's about military presence, bases in the Arctic, and moving those bases and launch points closer to the enemy. So if you're Russia, obviously the closest place you could be is on the east and the west coast of our shores to launch a hypersonic at us off of a submarine. It's also the area that we're paying the most attention to, and it's probably the most difficult for you to, get in there and not be detected, even though it's been done before. But imagine taking your submarine right up to the edge of Canada or Greenland or any of those areas in the Arctic where you're closer, so you don't have to traverse from Russia homeland, motherland as they call it, across the Arctic. You're now even closer, so that hypersonic launches faster and hits target faster. We need to be able to not only detect that, and all of our technology that we have is in Alaska and in Greenland. We have a huge base in Greenland. Used to be called Dual. It's a new name now, Beak or something. But anyway, that base is where we have our early warning systems. That's what they're looking for. And it's also now part of Space Force, and it also has a lot of space support out of Greenland. But being able to control or have more access and more presence in the Arctic, because it pushes us closer to the borders of the enemy, whether it's the U.S. moving to the Arctic against Russia or Russia moving to the Arctic against the U.S. And now we've got China, who really has no presence in the Arctic, but they're creating a presence in the Arctic.
Yep. China and Russia making new paths on a daily basis. They're saying that they're trucking through with these icebreakers and that they're making more headway than the U.S. I do think it's funky if you look at the Earth here. Look at this. Isn't that crazy? So this is a composite, right? Which is a big argument. This huge line right here. It's almost like if in art class when you were a kid, when you cut a piece of paper and you twirled it up and tabbed it together. That's what they say they have to do with the Earth because it's so big and they can only get chunks at a time, right? So, but that's Russia right there. And if you look where Greenland is, Russia, if they came from this direction, this would be extremely strategic. If you look, Russia launches from here, goes over Greenland and Canada to, say, Washington, D.C. I mean, Greenland's almost in between. I don't know if they consider this Canada or Greenland right here, but yeah, some of these places would be extremely smart to have. But will we get it? Make sure to watch the short we did over on news. It has a couple other stories that you definitely don't want to miss. Again, that is over on our sister channel, Marfoogle News. You can find it by going over to marfooglenews.com. Now, I want to say a special thank you to Searcher7. I appreciate your support tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And Bill Fortenberry, thank you for the support. Says China is not our friend. I agree. High five to that. Especially, if you look at how they run their country, I would rather not disagree with my government and only be able to hold up a white piece of paper with fear that I could get in trouble. But who knows? It's getting there. Get your paper stock ready. All right. And then thank you, Searcher07. It looks like you are a top supporter tonight. Thank you, Dex. Thank you for your service today.
Much love. Great job, brother.
And you guys have a wonderful night. Again, we are on X and Rumble and on DLive again. So thank you guys for the patience of all of the stuff. It was beyond any technical issue on our end. It was on a server, the entire West Coast, San Jose, Seattle, and this whole thing. It was a nightmare. But we talked directly to the Restream, and it looks like we fixed the problem. So thank you guys, and much love. Be safe, be prepared, and Marf out. It is now time for the shoutro. It's not an outro. It's not a shout out. It's a shoutro.
Ay, mono, amoy na mau.
Wizard of Oz, hit rewind but never hit pause.